Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wisnu Addil Azhar, which started number 21, 61, 21, 119. Here I will explain about phonology and phonetic, especially fricative and plosive sounds. Phonology is how to pronounce the word, and phonetic is result from phonology. The first material is English plosive, by completely blocking the airflow in the vocal tract and then releasing it suddenly. There are any six plosive sounds in English: p, b, t, t, k, g. The first is p and b. P. The flow of air out of the lung is stopped by the port lip. The nasal cavity is closed by phlegm, then the air in the mouth suddenly expelled, including unvoiced, mean or not using the vocal cords, or there is no lubrication from the vocal cord. Can be in all words. Example is potato, put, and stop. Next, both lips from a total barrier or airflow. Air pressure increases in the mouth and then air is suddenly expelled. Including voice means there is vibration in the throat, or when it's lower it will be more audible. Example, beer, body, and dumb. Next is tuh and the. The production of tuh is involves the tip of the tongue touching the alveolar ridge, which is the ridge is just behind the upper from the teeth. Thus, the air that comes out from the lung is completely blocked by the tip of the tongue, which is in tight contact with the alveolar ridge. In the same thing, the phlegm closes the pH of the nasal cavity, stopping the air flowing through the nose. When the sound "th" produced, the vocal folds vibrate. The name of sound "th" is voiceless. Example is tag, taxi, and then "th". The other alveolar stop is "th". The product of sound is almost same the product of "th". The only difference is the state of the vocal folds. In the other product "th" is sound, vocal folds need vibrate, and sound is called the voice. Example is down, body, and bridge. Next is k and g. In producing k, that air that comes from the lung is completely blocked by the back part of the tongue touching the phlegm. At the same time, the phlegm closes the pH through the nasal cavity, preventing the air from flowing through the nose. Then the air abruptly released. When sound k is produced, the vocal foot is vibrated. Example is keep, locker, and light. Next is G. The production of G is the same as the production of G, where the back part of the tongue touches the phlegm blocks the channel through the nasal cavity. However, when the product of G and folds is not vibrate and the production G is vocal folds have vibrate. Example is good, logo, and frog. English fricative introduced according their place of articulation, along with the necessary terminology for the analysis of English fricative. There are nine fricative sounds in English: v, v, z, 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 and h. Labiodental fricative. Labiodental fricative v and v. English fricative v, voiceless. The sound of v is produced by impeding the flow of air. Where the lower lip is evaporated, the touch upper sound, then the fricative sound is produced. Example is few, foot, fast, for. Then English fricative v. In the order of produce v, the lower lips also touch the upper lip and the creates friction when the pressure of airflow is released through the narrow space between the lower lip and upper teeth. It is voice sound because the vocal folds vibrate. Sound the vocal v is called voice. Example is review, verb, oval, above. Next, interdental fricative z and sh. Interdental fricative z and z. Fricative voiceless. In order product we need to create a friction between the tip of the tongue and upper teeth. In this sense, the friction occurs when the pressure of the air going through the narrow space in the mouth. In this case, between the tip, tongue, and the upper teeth. Example is example is think, breathe, and nothing, project. Next is z. In order product this is we also need to create friction between the tongue and the upper teeth. The friction is created through the release of the pressure of air through the narrow space between the tip of the tongue and the upper teeth. In order to produce sound, you also need to stick the tip, the tongue, and the piece it between the upper or lower teeth. Example is them, father, this. Next is alveolar fricative and z. In the order to produce sound, we need to raise the blade of the tongue to touch the alveolar ridge. The stream of air is impeded and let out the throat, the side of the tongue. The velum closes the nasal cavity, preventing the air coming through this channel. Example is see, set, shit, and sound. Next is z. The production of the z is the same as the production sh. By touching the alveolars, the blade of the tongue, and letting the air out through the side of the tongue. Example is easy, zip, zip, zoom. The next is palato-alveolar fricative sh and z. English fricative sh. In producing the sound, we need to create the friction by the tongue blade which make like in contact with the alveoli in the front of tongue is raised. The soft palate is also raised. When the tongue and held in this position, an unvoiced breath stream is directed against the palate and alveoli. Example is shoe, shine, flash, English. Next is z. The sound product the same as sh, with the front of the tongue is raised and create the narrowing rising from the ridge to be beginning of the hard palate. In distribution of the sound, sh is very limited. Z does not occur in initial sound English, and this range is final. It's commonly found its medial position outward. Example is pleasure, decision, vision, and choose. And the last is glottal h. English fricative h is voiceless, which the vocal cords do not vibrate during the production of the sound. It is produced by letting the air-stem freely pass the vocal folds to come out through the mouth, but the vocal folds do not vibrate. The h sound does not require the mouth to have any specific shape. Example is behind, hopeful, hurt, and home. Okay, that's all from me. The conclusion is phonology is how to produce the word and phonetic is result from phonology. I think enough from me. I'm sorry if any mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.